It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Minnesota Gophers women's basketball associate head coach, Carly Thibault. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's a kind of a cold day today. It's been really warm here over the last week, and it cooled off, and we had a little bit of snow this morning, so I just staying warm.
That's wonderful. Can you talk about how you got started into college coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you that don't know, my dad is a professional basketball coach, and has coached at all different levels throughout my life. When I was born, he coached in then the CBA, and then coached in the NBA and coached in the WNBA, kind of my high school age. And so I played college basketball at Monmouth University, um, and so for me, I loved this sport. I loved everything about it, and I never really honestly thought about anything else because I always wanted to be around the game. And so the next best thing to playing is coaching, and I get paid to be in the gym every single day. So I'll take it.
Can you talk about how you fell into your father's footsteps, Mike Thibault?
Yes, so I got to be around his teams at an early age, and so when he went to the WNBA, which I was in about seventh grade, I used to go to practices, and that's kind of the nice thing about the WNBA being in the summer is that I could really be a part of those teams. I worked as a ball kid really young, and then kind of worked my way up to equipment manager, and was always around to do whatever was needed, whether it was wash laundry and prepare for practice and games, or jump in if they needed an extra body in drills or a rebounder in practice, whatever it was that they needed. I was always around, and so I got to really be exposed to a lot, from kind of how to operate a team, and learned a lot from my dad from an X's and O's standpoint. And then from there, after I graduated college, I actually got my first coaching job at Florida State, which was I was the director of recruiting there, and one of the assistant coaches there was one of my dad's former players. So it was a really nice connection there.
Can you talk about your time at Florida State as the recruitment coordinator and what a recruitment coordinator does?
Yeah, so at Florida State, I wasn't able there in women's college basketball. You're allowed 4 countable coaches, and that's typically the head coach and 3 assistants. And so the director of recruiting at Florida State wasn't a countable coach, and so I did kind of all of the paperwork and a lot of the kind of the behind the scenes things, other than actually going out on the road recruiting and talking on the phone with recruits. So that would include mail outs and help with, travel schedules, any compliance paperwork that needed to be done, graphics, things like that. And so I got to be exposed to a really high level of recruiting under Sue Semrau. She's a phenomenal coach and a great recruiter. And so I learned a lot from her and Brooke Wyckoff, who's now kind of the interim head coach, and really got to learn a lot from them at my time there.
Can you talk about your time at Eastern Michigan?
Yeah. So Eastern Michigan was my first true coaching job as far as being accountable coach. And so I really enjoyed living in Michigan. My husband and I met while I lived there. And I really, really enjoyed it. And so I learned a lot from Tori Verdi. He's someone that is so incredibly prepared for everything as a team for practice, whether it's practice, a game, a workout. He really taught me a lot as far as what championship level preparation looks like, scouting reports, things like that. And so I kind of got to soak it all in my first 2 years of coaching, as far as he let me do a lot. He let me, scout. He let me help with offense. He let me help with defense. He really just kind of let me be hands-on and learn as much as I could. So I really appreciate him for that.
Can you talk about your time at Mississippi State as the assistant coach?
Yeah. So when Coach Verdi at Eastern Michigan took the job at UMass, I got a call from Vic Schaefer to interview at Mississippi State. And I've never lived in Mississippi. I lived in Tallahassee when I was at Florida State for a year, but wasn't super familiar with the SEC at the time. So I had to really, quick crash course and do my research. But I'm so fortunate that Coach Schaefer took a chance on me. I'm someone that had never coached as far as a coach at the BCS level. And so he let me do a lot. He let me be really involved, not only in the basketball piece, but I was a recruiting coordinator. So, I was in charge of, again, all the kind of the organizational mail outs and really phone calls, going on visits, organizing official visits, unofficial visits, home visits, things like that. And so, I feel really, and it's really easy to recruit to a program that wins, and so I was really fortunate for that, as far as being a recruiting coordinator, to be like, hey, look, guys, we're playing in the Final Four. That's a huge recruiting tool. And then just the overall experience, as far as, playing into the Final Four 2 years in a row, was invaluable experience. And that's something that, most people don't ever get to do in their lifetime. And so, I learned what it looks like to prepare to kind of build a championship level team, and what the kind of the toughness and the discipline and the accountability that's necessary to do that.
Can you talk about the difference in coaching between the ACC, SEC, and of course now the Big Ten that you're in?
Absolutely. And so I can't speak, I guess, as much detail to the SEC or the ACC, excuse me, just because I wasn't actually one of the coaches, and as far as, scouting reports and things like that. But the SEC and the Big Ten are very different for a lot of different reasons, but the style of play in general is very different, where the SEC is, everybody's very athletic. Everybody plays really, really fast. And I won't say everybody plays a similar style, but there's, you have to guard really good athletes every single night. And not to say that the Big Ten doesn't have good athletes, because we absolutely do. But you see a different style of play in almost every game that you play. Whereas Rutgers is very similar to the SEC. They're going to press you. They're going to make you, try and score against pressure, try and speed you up, so that they can run in transition, versus, maybe an Iowa who's really, a high powered offense. And so you see really contrasting styles in our league, where every single night you're preparing for something very different. Which is, I think, for me, I really love it. It keeps us on our toes as coaches. And I think our players just get used to playing against different styles, which, if they want to play at the next level, is invaluable.
Can you talk about what you've achieved so far as your time as Minnesota's associate head coach?
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm very fortunate for all my stops and who has kind of taken a chance on me along the way. And I've known Coach Whalen, our head coach, for like 17 years now. My dad coached her in the WNBA, and I'm really just fortunate to work with great people, and she's an awesome leader. And so she's first and foremost promoted me to associate head coach last year, which I'm really thankful for. And for me, it just really, it allows me to feel like this is truly home. And this is where I want to be, and want to build our program up to the level of success they had when Coach Whalen and our assistant coach, Coach Kelly, and our other assistant coach, Danny, played and coached here, and they went to a Final Four in 2004. And so I wanted to come here and kind of rebuild that and get that back to that level. And so we've taken great steps in doing so. We brought in really great players to add to great players that were already on the roster. And so it's been fun to kind of mesh it all together and fill in the gaps when, and continue to recruit to allow us to keep taking steps towards that championship level. And so last year we had a top 25 recruiting class. We've had a lot of success in, just kind of keeping some home state kids home, which is something that's really important to Coach Whalen, being a Minnesota kid herself. And there's just a lot of pride if you're from Minnesota, which I'm not, but there's a lot of pride if you're from here to represent your home state. And so that's something that we've really focused on as a staff to kind of have that pride of being a Minnesotan to stay home.
Can you talk about the recruitment process at Minnesota and what that's like on the women's basketball side?
Yeah, I mean, so and this is not just in Minnesota, but anywhere you are now, wherever you coach, you recruit younger and younger. And so, you know who players are as 8th graders and 7th graders now. And that's kind of the nice thing about being in the Twin Cities, is that there is a high level of talent in and around our area, from not only Minneapolis, but you go to, Milwaukee or Des Moines or, Chicago, Indianapolis are all very close and kind of in that Big Ten footprint. So we're getting to know players younger and younger, which is, the recruitment process starts earlier. However, we can't actually pick up the phone and call any of these players until September 1 of their junior year. And so that's when we can call and send mail and text messages and things like that. And now, having been here going into our 3rd year, we've been able to kind of build that database out earlier, so we can really have a kind of a relationship established and get a chance to know players at a younger age. And so then, when it comes to their junior and senior year, they're already committed and they can just enjoy their last year or two of high school basketball as a Gopher, and all the fans can go watch them.
Can you talk about what you were struggling with, of course, with COVID at the beginning of course, recruitment and still now?
Yeah, so COVID obviously changed a lot for everybody. And the biggest thing is that we have not been able to go out and recruit or bring any recruits here. As far as recruiting goes, obviously it's changed a lot with our team and practice and things like that as well. But from a recruiting standpoint, we haven't been able to go out on the road or bring student athletes here. And so I really feel for the players that have had to make decisions without ever setting foot on college campuses. The seniors this year were not able to do official visits. And that's hard. That's really hard to make a decision without really ever going and seeing a place, unless they were able to go do an unofficial visit younger. And so we had to get really creative as far as doing, virtual visits and virtual tours and videos and photos, and however it was that we could really, allow recruits to see what it would be like at Minnesota. So you just had to get creative on Zoom and videos and things like that. And so and then as far as evaluating players, it's a lot on live streams. There's different tournaments and events that live stream games, and so we had to do a lot of evaluation on that, and that presents its own set of challenges, because there's just certain things you can't always tell on film. Coach Whalen is really big on culture and character. And, when you're sitting at an AAU game in person, you can see, what's their facial expression, what's their body language like when they're not playing well, or their coach is getting on them, or there's a bad call by the referee. And that's a lot harder to tell on a live stream camera that's, 100 yards up, up in the air. So we had to get, it's another set of challenges that we've had, but we feel really good about where we're at as a staff, and, making the most of a tough situation.
Of course, before COVID, can you talk about the official visit? Like, what was that like before COVID?
Yeah, so typically you get 48 hours for a visit, and you can't do an official visit with anybody until after the Final Four of their junior year, so like April of their junior year, and then obviously into the fall. And so you bring them in, and you can fly in them and their parents or any 2 family members. And then you put them in a hotel, and the biggest thing is obviously making sure they get to know campus and your facilities and kind of the people that surround your program, whether it's your strength coach, your academic advisor, all the staff, and then really just getting quality time with the players, because we're going to be their family. We spend more time with our team, our players, our coaches than our own families. And so the fact that they maybe have never met anyone on our team, we want to give them good quality time to get to know who their future teammates will be.
Do they get to try on the jersey like before COVID, of course?
Yes. Yeah. Typically there's a photo shoot and all of that where they get to take some photos in a Minnesota jersey. And So again, Photoshop has come in handy during COVID to at least make that work for, commitment photos and things like that.
What advice would you give upcoming future women basketball players looking to play in college?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just to figure out as a young, maybe high school player and as a family, what is most important to you, because you could be, the best player in the country, and maybe a BCS school isn't a fit for you for whatever reason. And so really kind of figuring out what your priorities are, whether it's a certain degree, whether it's a certain distance from home, a certain style of play, a certain style of coaching, and kind of figure out what your priorities are and go from there. Whereas, the big name school and the across the country may not be the best fit for someone, even if they are talented enough to go there. And so really figure out what kind of experience you want to have and what's important to you, and then kind of go from there as far as making your visits and making your decision.
What advice would you give upcoming future coaches looking to get into college basketball as for the women's basketball programs?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is just to learn as much as you can in any experience that you're in. From my personal experience, every stop I've been at, I've learned something different. And so every experience is an opportunity to learn and grow, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience. And even for me, I was playing in college, and I used that experience for my coaching career. And so, take notes as you go along, and kind of adapt your own style of coaching, so that if you end up being a head coach, you know who you are as a coach and not trying to be somebody else. And so just continue to grow and learn in any chance you get.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the Minnesota women's basketball program at?
Yeah, so I am at CTBOW on both Instagram and Twitter. And I think I'm now getting into this whole TikTok thing. So I think it's CTBOW3 on TikTok. And our team social media is Gopher WBB.
Thank you again, Carly, for your interview, and best of luck at Minnesota this upcoming year.
Thanks so much for having me, Brandon. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Carly, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thanks so much.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.